You are listening to the Wealth Formula Podcast with Buck Joffrey. Get ready to change your life.
Hello, everybody. This is Buck Joffrey, and this is episode 5 of the Wealth Formula Podcast. And this podcast is really interesting. I think you're going to like it. It is an interview I did with a gentleman by the name of Dennis Blitz of the IRA Club. Basically, the IRA Club is an organization that allows you to use your IRA to invest in things other than the stock market, money market, the usual bank stuff. It's really, really interesting. And I think what's cool about it is that not only is it for investors, but it's also a great opportunity to learn about ways that you can raise money yourself. So anyway, without further ado, here is episode number 5 of the Wealth Formula Podcast, and this is Buck Joffrey. So everybody, this is Buck Joffrey here today, and I have got a great guest for you today. It is Dennis Blitz. Now, Dennis, apart from having a very cool name, is a gentleman who runs something called the IRA Club. And Dennis, tell us a little bit about the IRA Club.
And thank you very much. And what the IRA Club is, very, very simply, is it's an organization that sets up or establishes retirement accounts, be they IRA accounts or 401k accounts, that are very, very liberal in what they'll allow the individual to invest in. We all can have an IRA account at a major brokerage firm or a 401k account at a major brokerage firm. But all you're allowed to invest in, if you have an account like that, is the things offered by that firm. So it's a list of stocks, it's a list of mutual funds, it's a list of bank CDs possibly, or a money market fund, and that's it. Now you can move your money around in those equity positions all you like, but you're restricted to those common equity positions. However, some people want to put other things in their IRA. Some people would like to put real estate in their IRA because they think that investment would be a better investment for their retirement planning than would 500 shares of AT&T stock. There are companies called self-directed IRA companies that allow the individual to direct the investment they like. A lot of extra paperwork involved, a lot of extra setup involved, but that's what we do, and we allow people to invest in their IRA as they see fit. The only requirements basically are that everything that goes into an IRA or goes into the 401k that we establish be an investment. So can my IRA purchase a house and earn rent on that house on a tax-deferred basis and then even sell the house at a profit and not pay any income tax? And the answer, of course, is yes, just like I could do with any stock. Can my IRA buy a house and then I move into the house? Then the answer becomes no, because living in a house, it's no longer an investment, now it's your residence. And so that's it. If you can make it an investment, if we can make it an investment, it can be fit in an IRA, and we're happy to establish an account for that.
That's great, because the thing about it that's amazing to me is that I think the majority of people in the country have no idea that they can invest anything other than what the banks are offering. Now, why do you think that is? I mean, why is it? Maybe this may not be your expertise, but I'm curious, since you're in the field can you shed some light on why it is that it seems like the government generally advocates for the stock market, and because that's essentially what it's doing by making these non-alternative, like your routine IRA investments, all part of the stock market.
Well, on this one point, I'm not actually going to blame the government nearly as much as you think I might, because it really isn't the government's fault. The government established the IRA Act, the act that established the IRAs, was in October of 1974, and it became effective Jan 1 of 75. The act is pretty clear, and the act hasn't changed very, very much. What it said is you can invest for your future on a tax-deferred basis if you do so inside of a retirement trust. That retirement trust, they called it an individual retirement arrangement, IRA. Now, that was what the government said, and they haven't really changed that position. So the rules have never really changed. What happened, as a practical matter, was when that act went into place, banks immediately realized the tremendous potential of people putting their money into a bank account and then leaving it there for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years in some cases, until retirement. Imagine holding somebody's money for 40 and 50 years if you're a bank. And so banks were very aggressive about advertising. And if you're an old guy like I am, you remember back in 1975 when IRAs came along and banks plastered all over their window free IRA account. Well, of course, they were going to sit on that money for 40 years. They loved that. And so the banks were the first to do it. They really went into it with both feet, so to speak. About a year later, the mutual fund industry caught on that this was a great way to invest in, again, to get people to invest in their product and then stay put for so many years until retirement. And so mutual fund companies poured a lot of money into marketing it. Other industries never really caught on. Never really, the real estate industry would be, the next obvious one, but the real estate industry never really caught on that people could do this. It really, I don't want to say missed the boat, but it sort of let the boat pass it by. And so today when you talk to a person about what can you put in your IRA, they'll tell you, I can put mutual funds in there, and I can put stock in there, and I can put bank CDs in, and I can put money markets in there. And that's it. They sort of, stop because no one has told them they can do any more. The government never said you couldn't do these things. The government never said you could. The Internal Revenue Service is not really a very good marketing tool.
Yeah, but isn't there a when you invest outside of the typical stocks and money markets and all that, it's called a alternative.
It's called alternative asset only. Yeah, and the alternative asset is sort of a name that was applied sort of later on. It was sort of a wastepaper basket name because you just didn't know what to call those investments because what everybody was used to: stocks, bonds, mutual funds, bank CDs, money markets. So everything else became the alternative. But really, the alternative investments are very, very mainstream. As we said, real estate. My office is in Chicago. I'm in the Midwest, and so we see a lot of real estate, but we also see a lot of farmland that people will purchase and rent out because we're in the Midwest. We see some. We don't get as much as our counterparts in Texas get oil and gas exploration investments. We get a lot of private placement investments. We even at our office have. I'm sort of always impressed at how creative people are and still well within the regulations. One of my favorite is we have a couple of clients who have intellectual property in their IRA. In other words, their IRA is bought in these cases music rights. And so, as you know, when the music is played on the radio or in some event, somebody's collecting a royalty, and that royalty check gets written to their IRA.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. So this is interesting to me though, because I always thought that, and I was blaming the government on this show. I've actually blamed the government for this before. But the real issue is really that the banks created an infrastructure. Is that right? And that everything else, you have to create an infrastructure through someone like you. And that's really what the main difference is. So the real issue is that a company like yours provides us an opportunity to invest in what we want to invest in potentially and put it in our IRA. And it's just something that, is just not very well known.
Well, I was going to say that if you want to know what the brokerage firms are going to offer, what the bank's going to offer, I'm going to tell you it's always going to be the same thing. It's always going to be something that either they make a commission on selling or commission on buying, or B, they have a management fee on. One of those two things. If the item that goes into the IRA or 401k doesn't have one or both of those characteristics, it's just not going to get offered. Number two, the other characteristic that it's got to have is it's got to be computerized. It's something that they can click a couple of keystrokes and do. What happens at a self-directed IRA company, self-directed IRA companies do not collect a commission on the purchase of the real estate or the sale of the real estate or the management of the real estate. And we are willing to do that extra work because, real estate by its very nature, every piece is an individual piece and takes a good deal of paperwork to track.
So what are some of these? So you mentioned a few interesting things like farmland and you even intellectual property. Give me some other ideas here. Actually, your show I think is called, or the webinar series is called the IRA Ideas Webinar Series. Right?
Yeah, the Ideas Webinars. Yes. Well, we've had all kinds of people. We see a significant. We get things that are fairly conservative and things that are very risky. You're going to get that, and that's fine because. Our investors tend to be people who are a little bit more sophisticated and understand where risk fits into their structure. And so we'll get everything from fairly conservative investments, good, solid real estate investments into a cash flowing apartment complex, very, very solid investment like that, to very speculative investments. We have had we have a significant number of people who've invested in business startups. They're really fundamentally they're private placements. They're just not publicly traded stock. And we've had everything in those from a favorite of mine, which was a company that made a thermometer for children that you sort of pointed a laser at their forehead, and it gave you their reading, so you didn't have to physically touch the child while they were sleeping or something like that. We had a company on a while back that made LED lighting, and we don't track it, but I was aware of the fact that none of our clients who listened to that broadcast invested in that company that did the LED lighting, and I was fascinated by it, but they didn't. And I'm now want to kick my clients because about 6 weeks ago, that company got an exclusive contract with Home Depot.
Wow.
To supply LED lighting.
So there's a great opportunity here.
Yeah, so you get all these startups, and some of them are very, very, very creative. We have a client who owns water rights. This one always fascinated me. It's a woman lives in Alaska, and and I wasn't aware of this, but apparently the state that borders the ocean, controls or has jurisdiction over the water out to a certain point, and then after that, it's the country has jurisdiction, and then after that, you're into international waters. And the state of Alaska, of course, has a lot of water around it, and they have it sectioned off and grant fishing rights to people. Her IRA purchased fishing rights on a substantial portion of water, and then her IRA leases that to fishing companies, professional fishing companies, commercial fishing companies, I should say, that pay a royalty. So I don't want to go on and on. What I wanted to say is that there are every possible investment that you can make could be in your IRA. People aren't aware of it. And let me give you one other statistic that is fascinating. You say, why don't most people know about it? You're right, most people don't know about it. I can tell you that about just slightly, fractionally, over 2% of the IRAs in the country are self-directed IRAs. However, 10% of IRA money is in self-directed IRAs. In other words, self-directed IRAs are 5 times more successful than the typical IRA.
Not surprised by that, given what normally goes into that, your typical traditional IRA.
Can I remind you one other thing? Our industry got press during the last presidential election when Mitt Romney's IRA was talked about, if you'll recall, at I think it was $130 million. And that was just a simple self-directed IRA.
Yeah, I always wondered how he got that. As you know, most people's IRA let them put about $5,000 per year, right? So
Yeah.
so he's
Well,
like,
do you want to know how he got it?
Yeah, what's that? How'd he get it?
Do you want to know how he got it?
Sure. How'd he get it?
Oh, sure. Okay. Wait. Fundamentally, you make there's no possible way to get enough money into an IRA by contributing. It's $5,500 a year. It can't be done. It's actually far too low of a contribution that the government has got us locked into. But that aside, the way that money has to get into the IRA, in other words, at that point, is you've got to make good investments. Mitt Romney, of course, was able to make good investments because he was fully aware of companies that were going to go public before they went public.
Okay, interesting.
And so his IRA purchased, pre-IPO stock.
Right, and because I guess that he didn't have any sort of insider trading issues with it.
Yeah, there was no insider trading because actually I don't have Romney's accounts, so I can't give you all the details. But I'm sure that there were a lot of stocks that were acquired in that IRA that never did go public, and and even the most insider on public offerings is wrong frequently because there's a lot of stocks. Because I used to be kind of near that industry that well, this is going to go public, and then something happens and it doesn't. And
so to switch the subject a little bit, now one of the things looking at your webinar series, and I should note that I did a webinar for Dennis's IRA Club for some of the things that I'm doing last week. Mm-hmm. But I stuck around for a little bit, and I looked at the titles of the other things that were going on, and one of the things that you were talking about was Roth IRA conversion. As long as we've got you here, do you want to give us your take on that?
The Roth conversion is very, very interesting, and it's very underutilized. And the real reason it's underutilized is the same as the real reason we don't have more self-directed IRAs. There's no money in it for the big companies. It doesn't matter to Fidelity or to Schwab or to Merrill Lynch or Bank of America if they're holding your traditional IRA or if they're holding your Roth IRA. Most people, when they start an IRA, start a traditional. There's just no benefit for them to sit on the phone with you for too very long and explain a Roth IRA because they're going to make exactly the same number of dollars and they've got to go through the work of doing the conversion. So just nobody's going to talk about it. There's no money in it. And so
why should we do it, Dennis? Just for anybody who doesn't really know.
Exactly. Well, that's a very good point. Why should you do it? And you should do it or should consider it for a couple of reasons. The two basic reasons are, number one, the big one, is that if you have a Roth IRA, all the distributions, and we're all going to take distributions from our IRA at some point. That's why we have these things. All the distributions are tax-free for life, which is, it's hard to beat an investment that's going to give you a return that's going to be tax-free for life. And all you've got to do to have a distribution that's tax-free for life is it's got to be a qualified distribution. Definition of a qualified distribution for a Roth IRA is very simple. It's only two steps. One is the owner of the IRA has achieved the age of 59 and a half or greater. And number two, the Roth IRA is 5 years or older. So in other words, you can't start a Roth IRA on Tuesday and then take the money out on, the profits on Wednesday and say, oh, look, they're all tax-free. It does. There is a 5-year clock. But that's it.
Let's take a step back just for our listeners, because when I was, even let's say 5-6 years ago or 7 years ago, when I was a resident, I started a resident surgeon. I wasn't making any money to put away. Mm-hmm. I started hearing about, some of my fellow residents were doing this thing called Roth IRA. I said, well, what is that? Well, here's what we do is instead of, we put money that's been taxed into this IRA and I don't get taxed on it later. That opposed to the idea of, some people putting away $5,000 or $5,500 of pre-tax money so that they don't get taxed on that and until they're in their 60s. So that wasn't a possibility for anybody. The Roth IRA was not an option for anybody making over a certain amount of money.
Right, yeah.
Wasn't that correct?
It was 120,000 or so. And it's still the rule. Matter of fact, I've got to look up what it is because it changes each year. I've got to look what it is for 2014. But yes, if you earn too much money, you cannot contribute to an IRA. But in 2010, Congress changed the rule and said, yes, you still cannot contribute to a Roth IRA if you make over the limit, and well, let's ballpark it at $120,000. However, they got rid of, or they took away, the restriction on Roth conversions, and they said, well, anybody can do a Roth conversion. So it sort of left us with this very, very silly, I don't want to call it a loophole, I really dislike that word, but this very silly reality of the way the code is written now that says, well, no, you can't make a Roth contribution, you can make a traditional contribution. However, turn right around after you've made the contribution, you can make a conversion, you can convert to a Roth. So a conversion is, fairly similar. You just simply contact your IRA company, tell them I've got this traditional IRA, I'd like to convert all or part of it to a Roth IRA. They'll just say how much, and you'll tell them.
And then you just pay the taxes on
the amount converted,
yeah. IRA.
And so if somebody calls us, and it's not just us, you can call any IRA company that you have your account with, and just tell them, and really it's a matter of keystrokes to do it. The moment we make those keystrokes, automatically we send you a 1099 for the value of the conversion.
Now, is there just getting a little bit more detail on this? When you say, for example, somebody's been contributing to their IRA for 10 years, and when they started doing it, they were making, 5 figures, and then the year they wanted to convert it, they're in a different tax bracket. Now they're making a lot more money. Which is all of it taxed at the higher rate?
Yeah, everything happens at the tax rate at that time. So, with an IRA, generally the sooner you do things, the better off you are because incomes go up, hopefully.
Well, if you're having a bad year personally, it might not be a bad time to do it because your tax rate will be at a lower level. Right.
We had a lot of people, yes, you're very right. We had a lot of people do Roth conversions the last couple of years when there were a lot of, executives who were out of, work.
Out of work. They're not making any money, so they're not, their taxes are pretty much nothing, right? So that's So if you're unemployed out there right now, this is something you definitely want to think about doing.
Well, you know what? Let me. You say that with kind of tongue in cheek.
Well, no, I'm serious. I think it's a great idea.
It's not tongue in cheek because let me tell you. Here we are. This is. We're recording this towards the end of December or middle of December, and if you're thinking of a Roth conversion, January is a wonderful time to do a Roth conversion, or February, because the income tax that you're going to pay on that, when that 1099 gets sent out to you, isn't due until April 15th of the following year, and it gives you a full year to do tax planning. Can I defer some income into the following year? Can I hurry some income into this year? In the previous year, can I? Do I have medical expenses? Am I considering a major charitable contribution? All those things are going to, I've got a whole year to do that planning.
Yeah, I think I said it kind of laughing, but I'm totally serious about it. I think it's a great idea. And let me again ask you a little bit more about some other options here. Now, some people don't have IRAs, but they have 401ks. Now, is there anything we can do with that?
Oh my! Here at our office, we do only one kind of 401k. There's many, many kinds. We only do one. We do a thing called a solo 401k. We have so very many clients who are individuals. There's just them. They own the company, they own their business, and they have no employees. And we see so much more of that today than we used to. And that's everything from attorneys. There's a lot of attorneys, a lot of CPAs who do that, a lot of computer programmers, my golly.
Dennis, is that the same thing as a SEPS?
No, there's similarities, but no, it's not really. It really is a 401k. And do you want to know the real secret of solo 401ks?
Yeah.
You promise not to tell anyone? Okay. When we sit down to write a 401k for a client, and I've not counted them up, 40, 50 or so, maybe more, questions that we'll ask the client, we'll talk about, and we'll say, and then there's parameters. Well, you can do all the way down to this or all the way up to that, and what do you want to do? And give you an example. You've got this company here, you've got 35 employees, and that's very nice, and you're going to set a 401k, and that's very nice. When do you want your employees vested? Do you want them invested after they've been here a year, or 2 years, or 3 years? And fundamentally, there's differences of how that can be computed, but the way the parameters are written, you could take anything from day one. No, there is no vesting delay. I mean, the day the person starts, that money is, theirs and invested, all the way out to 6 years. If you go out to 6 years, there's some stipulations. If you make your employees wait that long. And then we go to the next topic, and how much profit sharing do you want, and how much, do you want the 401k to permit borrowing, and if so, under what circumstances and what restrictions? So we have this long, long list, and then every answer to every question has set up parameters, and as long as we're in the parameters, we write up the plan with that way. That's how 401k is established. However, the solo 401k is a little different because there's only you. This person has, you're a computer programmer, you are a graphic artist, you are a medical doctor working, but getting paid with 1099s because that's how you're structured. And so when we sit down and write that, we really don't ask you very many questions at all because we make an assumption you're always going to take the most liberal answer. What is the vesting period for my 401k if I'm the only employee? 0. On day one, I'm vested. Do we permit loans? Sure. What are the restrictions? There are no restrictions. And on and on. And so that's a solo 401k, and they're very common. And then what can it invest in? It can invest in things that are going to benefit the employees for their future. So here we are. We're back to all those investments. Do you want to invest in real estate? Or do you want to invest in mineral rights? Boy, we have a bunch of people with mineral rights. Cattle breeding programs. We have all types of things, yeah.
And this kind of program, I guess the other advantage, and this I assume this is basically for business owners or people who have an entity. The limits are substantially higher, right? So now instead of your 55,
yeah, in 2014, I can tell you the maximum contribution in 2014 will be $52,000, unless you are age 50 and over, and then you're allowed what's called the catch-up contribution. The catch-up contribution will be $5,500. So $5,500 on top of the $52,000, you have a $57,500 maximum contribution.
You have to make a certain amount before you can max out that.
Max out, yeah, and typically, and this is way oversimplification. It's 20% of earnings.
Right. And there's no way to create a Roth scenario for that solo 401k.
But there is.
There is.
He said, yes, there is.
Wow. Okay.
You just let us know what you'd like to do, and we just put a paragraph in the plan. The maximum amount of the Roth contribution in a solo 401k is you have to treat yourself as an employee. In other words, you have to pay yourself a paycheck. Is one of the stipulations, because the only people who can get the Roth contribution are the employees. But when it's a solo 401k, oddly enough, you wear two hats. You are both the employer and the employee at the same time. And so you can choose to treat yourself like an employee for that purpose, and treating yourself like an employee simply means you write yourself a paycheck and you issue yourself a W-2. Very, very common,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there are many people listening to your blog that own their own business and take a paycheck. That's all this is. And so, as the employee, an employee is allowed to make a Roth 401k contribution. That maximum contribution for 2014 will be up to 100% of earned income, not to exceed $17,500. So if you had a business and chose to pay yourself, and you're choosing to pay yourself more than $17,500, that amount could go into that 401k as a Roth.
Right. So you could, in theory, say even if you draw the rest of your money, but have yourself on a W-2 for $18,000, basically put all that in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep. And so now instead of maxing yourself out at $5,500, you've got $18,000.
Well, you've maxed yourself. The max total is $52,000. Again, we're for months under age 50. So you're not allowed to double dip. And so what they're saying is, okay, well, he's got a maximum of $52,000. He did use up $17,500 on this, by calling himself an employee. But the balance you could still put in as profit sharing for the employer.
Sure. So lots of opportunities there, and gosh, it still amazes me that this isn't something that's more mainstream at this point. But I guess let's not blame the government. But I guess the banks are very powerful, and they'll make it seem like this is really their only option, right? Because they have no reason to tell you about what else is out there. I think the other thing that's really I think that investing in these types of opportunities is advantageous for investors for another reason personally, and that is that the majority of them, the person who's actually offering that investment has skin in the game. So you've got these people out there who are entrepreneurs, starting up businesses. You got people who are doing real estate syndications, something that I've actually presented through you too, and pretty much everybody who has something to offer for investments has a substantial amount of money invested in that themselves. And I think it makes a big difference. I mean, if you look at what happened with Chase recently, with packaging up all those lousy mortgages and selling them off to people, I'm sure, knowing what they did, that none of them bought them themselves, right? Mm-hmm. So this is, I think this is a very smart way to go, and it's funny that we call it alternative when there's,
it should be mainstream, yeah.
Yeah, it should be mainstream, and brick and mortar is about, there's not much older than brick and mortar when it comes to assets. So
yeah, and I'm glad you said that. We talk about all these, I don't want to call them the more exotics, but because there's nothing exotic about, intellectual property and oil and gas and cattle breeding and cattle feeding and all that. But far and away, of all the assets that are in self-directed IRAs, the most common is brick and mortar.
Yeah. Now, one other thing to mention is that we've been focusing on approaching this from the investor end, but there's a lot of people who are interested in the things that I talk about are small business people, entrepreneurs, real estate investors themselves. So there's a great opportunity also to potentially get yourself in front of people. And if they want to do that, how would they go about doing that, Dennis?
Sure. We do have our clientele and our prospects call us up and they say, "Gee, what can we invest in?" And we get that phone call, and we're not allowed to say that. That's one thing we have to. At that point, we have to just be quiet. If you're a self-directed IRA company, you're not involved in the investment or giving investment advice, etc. And so we can't answer that question, and so we're kind of stuck. And then we get people who do contact us who say, I've got this investment opportunity. I want to tell you, send me the people that you have that should be interested in it. And we say, well, we can't do that either. However, we can create a situation where the two of you can sort of conveniently bump into each other. I don't know what else to say. But it's called IRA Ideas. We do it. We used to do it once a month. We're going to probably start doing it a little bit more now, just because of the requests for it. And we're very, very happy to have you contact us. We'll set a time. We'll let our mail list know that what the topic is going to be, and those that are interested will tune in. And to be very frank, it's probably about a 35-minute presentation, of which I do the first 5 or 10 minutes about, what our role is. Then I literally do turn off my microphone. I mean, I don't just want to sound silly. I don't even sit quietly. I literally turn off the microphone so that I don't interrupt anybody. Let, the business person tell the story that they want people to hear about their opportunity. And then we close with me saying, please contact that person directly, because we don't have information about the investment. That person has all the information about the investment. Please contact them. And thank you very much. So we're always happy to expose you to people who are interested investors. We're always happy to expose interested investors to opportunities.
How do we? Can you give us a website and maybe a phone number or something so people can get in touch?
Yeah, sure. Well, the website is iraclub.org, iraclub.org, and that'll just really give you a lot of information about different kinds of IRAs and people who use them for real estate and people who use them for tax liens and people who use them for whatever else they might use them for. If you want to talk about presenting your idea, just call us up. My name is Dennis Blitz. Our phone number is toll-free, 888-795-7950.
That's great, Dennis, and I'm really excited. I've been a presenter now, but I'm also planning to do a little conversion with you probably in January. January is a good time, right? So thank you for coming into the show, and it was great talking to you, and hopefully we can have you again sometime.
Anytime. I really enjoyed it. Nice talking with you. Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, nice talking to you, Dennis.
Good day.
Thank you for listening to the Wealth Formula Podcast. Visit us on the web at wealthformula.com. The information contained in this podcast are opinions, not fact. As always, consult your own financial team before making any investment. See you next time.